talking about are backed up by the National Association of Commercial Real Estate Investments Funds, which is NACRF. And the returns we are talking about here are typical, if done properly with the right, with the right sponsor behind you, the guys that know what they're doing day in, day out. With the stock market, I believe the average annual dividend, including reinvestment, is between 6 and 7%. And so I think for a lot of people, it's just really about getting access to the investment and being able to get into the space. Now, we're going to talk now a little bit about demographics and economics. And it's going to be maybe a little bit dry for some people, but this is really, really important. The demographic and economic trends that are lining up right now are some of the key reasons why we and some of the professionals in this space are lining up now to invest in multifamily buildings. These trends are 100% visible. They're very, very long in duration. They're not really sensitive to market swings and things like that. And when they start to turn, you'll see it years in advance and can be leveraged, within the multifamily space for years and years to come. And so I can't emphasize how important what I'm about to share with you is from a investing perspective, because this one I'm going to share with you is just some fantastic intel with regards to investing in real estate and some of the drivers why. So the first thing when we talk about demographics and economics, the first thing I want to talk about is multifamily demand. So multifamily is really driven by households, the population cycle. So as household growth increases in the U.S., or more specifically within a city or metropolitan statistic area, or MSA, the better in general multifamily will do. So we tend to focus not on boom-bust markets, but on markets that have a proven growth path, and the growth is sustainable. So we're really not looking for kind of those boom-bust markets. We're looking for steady population and job growth markets. Now, by investing in these population growth markets, we have a better advantage when it comes to apartment demand, appreciation, rental income growth, and buyer demand for our apartments if and when we decide to sell. So understanding where people are moving to and why is extremely important to us as real estate investors. Okay, so now renter household formation is running at about 1.8 million per year on average, and that's expected for the next at least 5 years. So new household formation is 1.8 million, just over 1.8 million per year. Now the apartment median the apartments going into service is about 235,000 per year. So that leaves a supply-demand gap of about 1.5 million per year. So I think you kind of get where I'm going with this. So you'll see from the graph that the renter household has been increasing and will continue to increase. Now look at the years 2010 through 2015, which of course we're well into now. You'll see that between 2010 and 2015, we have new renters. We have 9.1 million new renters, or approximately 1.8 million per year, and that does not slow down for a while. And I'll show you just in a minute here why. But this is very, very important to understand what we're talking about here. So we're talking about new renter household formation is required, for the population growth, is just over 1.8 million per year. New apartments coming into service is 235,000 per year. Well, tells you right there you have a huge supply-demand difference, and so of course that is an eye-opener. That's a huge clue for you investors out there to kind of see exactly what is going on. Now we look at multifamily demand and we look at some of the waves that are coming our way. The biggest reason why is because of the demographic collision of two very large waves. Now, this graph is supplied to us by the U.S. Census Bureau and shows us the two largest demographics in history, which are the baby boomers, and they're about 77 million strong. And then not the kids, but the grandkids of the baby boomers are called echo boomers, are another wave of about 77 million strong. Now the nuance here is that the largest rental group is those aged between 18 and 30, and the second largest rental group is those over 55. So let me repeat that again. When we look at this graph and we see where there's just two huge waves of population moving through the age cycle, it's right in our wheelhouse. Our largest rental groups are those between the current ages of 18 and 30, echo boomers, and the second largest rental group is over 55. So of course that's the baby boomers, right? And the over 55 rental group, once they begin to rent, they never own again. And of course lifespans are increasing with the population and increases in medical practices. The average lifespan in the United States is 78, and it's increasing. So it's a large cycle that will be very, very focused on living in rental communities, and it will last for a very long time. So this is a critical stat that we've got here that I wanted to walk you through, because it's going to have a big impact on rental. Now let's take a look at immigration growth. It's another really key trend we're seeing in the U.S., and it's continuing to grow. The U.S. population across the board, and of course not only are we seeing immigrants come in, but really what we're seeing is actually a double compound effect, because the immigrants are coming in and they're also having kids, so it's further accelerating our population. Now, this is not a socioeconomic story. This is actually more of a sociological story. You know, the United States is one of the last, if not the only, ownership culture country. We believe owning a home is a privilege, not a right. And really, in most every other developed country, not just the third world, but almost every other developed country, it's not. So you don't have people coming into the United States thinking, I need to own a home to be successful. They don't have that mentality. You know, we've developed kind of a subculture that you need to own a home to be successful. Well, honestly, that shine has faded over the last few years, and I think it's firstly due to the housing crisis, and our kids moving forward will be more reluctant to enter in home ownership after seeing what we've gone through both personally and as a country. So the home ownership is on the decline across the board, and you've seen that in the previous slide, and I think it's truly lost, you know, some of its shine. Typical home ownership right now is about is just over 60%, you know, from 1994 to 2002. You know, we saw momentum to increase home ownership, and this peaked at the top of the housing bubble in 05 and 06, and since then we have seen a gradual decline in home ownership that is partly due to the housing crisis and ensuing foreclosures. However, this is also impacted by more stringent lending requirements and a general push towards renting. And just so you know, for every 1% drop in home ownership, that means 1 million new renters have entered the market. So people either own a home where they live with family or they rent, and people typically don't want to live with family long, so renting is really what they're gravitating to. The U.S. home ownership rate is declining. You know, more individual and couples and families are going back to renting, and that isn't going to change anytime soon. So there's a lot of steam, you know, and momentum behind this push of going into rental. So, you know, and it's all demand. So when we talk about this, we're talking about demand, and it's a very powerful demand story. We haven't seen anything like it, and I think it's going to last for a real long time, for years to come. You know, and so when we talk about, you know, this is us talking, and really, you know, it's not just us that are talking about this. It's you know, you've got Forbes, Wall Street Journal, CNN, Bloomberg, CoStar. You know, they've all been saying that multifamily will outperform every other asset class, period. And it has been. If you look at the REIT market, it has outperformed pretty much every other asset class. Private REITs have done even better, and they have a much longer tail to them. You know, a REIT truly though is just a real estate flavored stock, and they are purchased really purely on expectations. But the fundamental yield is highly disconnected from the actual stock performance. So when you invest into a REIT, you're not really investing in real estate. You're investing into a stock that owns the real estate. And a REIT will only provide sector exposure, and so you're not really owning real estate. You don't, you know, if you really want to take advantage of the inflation hedge and tax benefits and have long-term income, you know, you really have to own the actual property yourself, or through fractional investing or a limited partnership type structure or something like that. But everybody out there now that has done the analysis, done the research, are saying, you know what, I think you really need to take a look at investing in